Okay, I see people are starting to come in. Everyone, you'll see this slide because we'll be waiting, of course, for everyone to join in and settle in. In the meantime, please use the chat to answer this question. How is your agency-client relationship going? We'll wait for another couple of minutes and then get started. I just saw that until just now. Attendees couldn't actually chat. So now it's available if you want to answer the question.
At least you've had time to be prepping your answers and
Yes, exactly. To think about what you want to answer about your your agency client relationship. Cool. I think we can kind of get started, ease into it, and introduce ourselves in the meantime. I am Miruna. I'm the CMO at Planable, and I've been part of the team for about 6 years now. And yeah, we decided to host this webinar to discuss about what anyone should be able to expect from their social media agency, because we feel like it's a very fuzzy ground right now. So, it can, from my experience as a client, because I've been one a few times, I feel like there's moments, all sorts of moments when you feel like, is it okay for me to ask this? Are they gonna judge me? Are they gonna get upset? Because you don't want to ruin the relationship, but you want to be satisfied. And yeah, there's many gray areas to navigate. And I'm very, very excited that Corrie is part of this webinar today, and it will share from her infinite wisdom gathered in so many years of owning an agency, being part of an agency, and selling an agency even. So, yeah, Corrie, would you want to continue the introduction?
yeah, of course, of course. So hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here today as well. So like Marina said, my name's Corrie. I have run a social media agency. I've worked client side working with marketing and social media agencies. And I now work in a much larger integrated strategy agency as well. So I have very high expectations, both from when I was client side of what I'd expect from an agency relationship, and now running the social media team here at StrategiQ, I have high expectations of what we would deliver to our clients as well. So I think all of that experience combined, we've got some really interesting learnings and pitfalls and observations that we can take you through today of what you should expect from your client relationship when you're working with a social media agency.
Cool. Okay. So then how's this webinar going to go is that first off, Corrie will talk about everything you need to know about what you should expect from her experience, from her point of view, and yeah, from, as you said, Corrie, working with so many clients. Then I'll go a bit into the communication and collaboration side of things, how that should go, how what the principles of that relationship should look like, and what are some myths of this power dynamic and, again, communication workflows existing in the industry. And then we'll go into some real life situations. We gathered some, cases and situations where people don't know how to act or what to do, and Corrie will tackle them live. And in the meantime, if you have any situations or questions that you want to share, please feel free to do so all throughout the webinar, and especially in that section. So yes, get ready, because it's going to be an exciting one. Corrie, feel free to start presenting.
Perfect. So I'll just move the slides on. There we go. Okay, so what are we going to look at today? So I've broken this into 3 areas, which you could also look at as the journey from when you first meet your social media agency and you're deciding, what does good look like? What are any of the red flags potentially with the agency that you're speaking to? Through to that pitch stage where you're thinking, maybe you're speaking to a couple of different agencies and you're thinking, how can this agency be the one that best aligns to me as a client? And then through to the onboarding stage, when you've pitched the agency that you want to work with, you've got contract signed, and you're thinking, how can we start this relationship as smoothly as possible? So we're going to draw on some experience from being client side, from owning an agency, and from working agency side as well. So the slides been a little bit slow on my side. I don't know if
let's see. Can you take over now?
No, they're not moving it on. If we could just go to the next slide, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
If you could do that on your side. Perfect. Okay, so first steps then, looking at what does good look like with a social media agency. So in my experience, the last 10 years working in social, both client and agency side, like I mentioned, there's a real variety in the type of social media agencies that you can work with. And that ranges from quite small agencies where you're on more of a freelancer model almost, and it's a lot of outsourcing and asking people to do for you, through to working with much larger agencies where you're asking people to think for you, and you're getting a much more strategic and overall holistic service. And I know there'll be people on this webinar that are working with all sizes of agencies. So if we flip to the next slide, we can look at what the difference is between those 2 agency types. So not all agencies are created equal. You're going to have agencies that are different sizes, but you're also going to have agencies that have different business model setups, that care about client and the quality of client work in different capacities. And the best way that I could sum this up is that there's a real difference in my mind between doing social media and actually doing social media in the depth that it should be done. So if we can flip to the next slide, what you see with a huge number of social media agencies is that they talk just about what we've got here in bold on the slide. They talk just about posting content. That is maybe 1/10 of what you could talk about when it comes to social media services. So in my mind, what good looks like for a social media agency is actually all of these other bullet points that go into posting content on your social channels. So when we work with a client, anyone that we onboard for social media, we're looking at this full service from start to finish. So it's not just that we'll take over their social pages and post content, but actually we don't think we can do good social media marketing unless we know their business and industry insights, unless we know their customer and their customer personas in so much detail, unless we've done analysis on what their competitors are doing, unless we've done a review of the current activity of what's going on with social media at the moment, and therefore an opportunity SWOT of what can we be doing in the future. At that stage, once we've done all that upfront prep, then we'd look to create the social media strategy. We'd look to set up the channels for best practice. So maybe there's bios that could be optimized more. Maybe there's cover photos that have old branding on them. We'd look at the content pillars that we want to post about, and that would include the copywriting, graphic design, video editing. Then we'd get on to posting content. So you can see there's already 7 bullet points before you even get to posting content. We'd split content up into strategic content, which you can plan out, you know, a month in advance, that's your evergreen, always on kind of content. But then you've also got your reactive content and how you need to be monitoring trends to react to those things that are happening in the news or happening in popular culture that day. Page management and community engagement, actually not just looking at social media as we post out content, but looking at this as in social being a two-way relationship, a two-way communication between your audience, and then social listening and value reporting as well. So any agency that you hear talking about doing good social media being just posting content, this is your cheat sheet of all the other things that should be included in social media. So any agency that you're speaking to, that's what I'd recommend asking them about, is where do these elements come into their service? Because in my mind, you can't do one part of social media without looking at multiple of these other parts. This is coincidentally also why you'll hear social media managers talk about having to wear so many different hats during their job role. There's a lot that goes into this, but it means that you need a skilled agency to do it. So if you are in that situation where your social media agency has said to you, yeah, we post content and it feels like it's more of a box ticking exercise, then that is a complete red flag where something's not right. If you have a social media manager that isn't talking to you about social listening or about customer personas, in my mind, that would indicate a lack of passion for this area and for this industry. You should have people that are really interested in that research and interested in the behavioral science and all of those other elements that go into social media. And that's also what's going to benefit your business the best. So a lack of passion might sound like, we'll do X number of posts a month for you. If you ever hear an agency say, oh yeah, we can do 6 posts a month for you, to me indicates a lack of passion and the wrong way to structure a social media service. Because if they've done those 6 posts a month for you, but then something really cool and reactive happens that you could put a post out on and get so much engagement and so much traction, you don't want that agency that's going to say, well, we've hit our quota here for the month, we're not going to do any more. The way that we work with clients on that is more of a and it depends on the level of budgets that you've got for agencies as well, right? But the way that we'd work on it is more of a, we are doing your social media. If something reactive comes up that we know is going to benefit you, we will work on it, and we'll work on it that day, because that's the way that social needs to run. Another red flag for this is if you ever hear a social media agency say, oh, we don't cover community management, I'd think of that as a complete red flag as well, because so your content would be you're putting posts out. Community management would be when your audience comments on those posts or they send you messages. We, in our social media department, we manage community management and community engagement for clients, because we know that we want to be learning about the audience and responding to those comments and helping those posts get more engagement. We don't just want to put the post out and like post and ghost, people call it. So any agency that's not into doing community management is really missing out on learnings from the audience. So yeah, another red flag there. So second stage here is how to choose an agency that aligns with you. So if we can jump to the next slide, perfect. Okay, so when we're working with clients during the sales process, we talk a lot as an agency about chemistry, and it's a hugely important part of choosing the agency that you want to work with. You obviously always need to look at the agency's skill set and the people that they've got, and can they actually do a good job? And that speaks to step 1 of this presentation, of all those different areas that you want them to be skilled on and thinking about. But ultimately, to me, an agency client relationship, the key there is the fact that it's a relationship. And the agency that you work with on your social media, you're probably going to speak to at least once a week, whether that's a phone call, whether that's an in-person meeting, whether that's a lot of emails. are those people that you're going to think, oh God, they've emailed me again, or oh, I've got a call with them later and I'm dreading that? Or is it going to be that's the best call of your week or the best email that you receive? You know, you want to make sure that you're working with people that you feel a natural alignment with, and that they have good energy and that they're going to lift you up in your business or your work, rather than be you know, something that drags you down, because the agency is there to make you and your business better. Second point here is, do you get the sense that they actually care? So a really good example of this is last week we had a conversation with a potential client, and we asked them at the end of the call, are there any other agencies that you're speaking to about this? And they'd got in touch with us on the Monday. We'd got back to them and scheduled a call to talk on the Tuesday. And then on the Wednesday, we'd sent them a proposal and a scope of work for how we could work together. In that call on the Tuesday, when we asked them, who else are you speaking to? They said, oh, over the past couple of weeks, we've messaged 4 or 5 other agencies, but they haven't actually got back to us yet. Or they've told us we can take a call, but it'll be in a couple of weeks. All of those little touch points that you have really early on with agencies indicate how much they care about you and your business, how much effort they put into that first call, how quickly they want to schedule that call, how many people they bring to the call. And those are all the things that you'll probably have a gut feeling about when you speak to that agency. You'll know, are these people that I like and I get a good sense for the fact that they're going to go the extra mile and care? Or does it seem like quite early on there's signs that they're not that interested? So another way to look at that is assessing values. So as a company, I'm sure that you have a set of different values and, you know, words or phrases that you'd hold all of your employees to. I find it's really useful to think about how the values of you as a client align to the values of the agency. Because the values that an agency has tells you how their people operate and what they believe in as a company. So you want to think about this in a couple of ways. You've got the direction and the pace that you want to move at. So if you're a startup and you want to get things done really quickly, and your values are, you know, fail fast, or let's break things but learn from them, and you're talking to an agency that's got 300 people and they do, you know, perfect, beautiful, creative work, there's not a natural alignment there, because you're going to want to move really, really fast and do things to 80% good, and they're going to want to do it 100%, you know, beautiful, and take months and months to do it. So you might want to work with an agency that's got values around pace and experimentation, like your company does. Equally, you want to think about the size of both companies. So generally, I think you want to match to the size of company you are. Generally, you want to match to the size of agency and that's going to work on budgets as well. If you're a really small and growing business, you're not going to be able to work with as big of an agency. Likewise, as a client, you want to think about, is my client account going to be one of the biggest client accounts that this agency has? Or am I going to be one of the smaller ones, and how much attention am I going to get from that agency? So there's a couple of value-based considerations there. Perfect. And then once you've decided, seems like a good agency for me, let's get going, you've signed on the dotted line. Onboarding is everything. And the way that a relationship goes long term, I think you can tell quite early on from the quality of the onboarding. So if we jump to the next slide, we've got a couple of really common pitfalls that the 2 most common pitfalls that I see when onboarding a new agency. So number 1 here, and this is particularly prevalent with social media, is that social media is always on. You always need to be putting posts out every week. If you've got one agency that's scheduled to finish their contract at the end of May, and the new agency is going to start from the start of June, there's absolutely zero time for that second agency, the new agency, to start working and immediately be getting content out, because you're basically asking them to start posting from day 1 without doing any of those other things that we spoke about right back at the first slide, with the social strategy and the customer personas and getting to know your business. So you need to allow enough time so that your old agency can hand over to your new one, or at least so that on the last day that your old agency finishes, your new one has done all their research, has got their content plans together, is ready to go and ready to start posting in the same or similar tone of voice to what your brand has been posting previously, because you don't want, for one, there to be a gap in the content that goes out and for your engagement and your traction to drop. But two, you don't want for the tone of voice to look drastically different. You don't really want for people to think, I feel like someone different is managing these social media accounts now. And the second pitfall here, and this sounds like a really silly one, but we've had 3 clients speak to us this last month about this, and one client has actually paid us to help them speak to Meta about it to get it sorted, is have admin access and own all the passwords to your social channels. We've had a couple of instances where old agencies that the client hasn't worked with in years, they set up the Facebook page, or they own the Instagram password and no one else knows it, or a previous employee has left and they didn't hand it over, and it's really tricky to get access to a page, and you have to send so much documentation to Meta to prove that that's your business and your page that you should be owning. So you can save yourself a huge amount of headache if you make sure that you've got the access, and you take your old agency off and you add your new agency on. I probably have 25 different accounts that I've worked with in the past that I still have admin access to. And I can't remove myself. That's up to the client has the access to be able to take me off those accounts. And because I'm a nice person, I'm not going to go crazy with posting stuff. But if I wanted to, I could like wreak havoc on some of these accounts. So it's just really important to keep all that admin up to date so that, yeah, you don't open yourself up to any difficulties. Then feel free to take a screenshot of this. I'm sure we'll send out the recording afterwards. But this is a cheat sheet of all of the documents and areas that you want to speak about with your agency to provide them with the smoothest onboarding. And it is, to me, a red flag if at the chemistry call stage, when you're in the sales stage, if your agency doesn't ask about any of these things, it would suggest to me that they're not thinking about your social media in as much depth as you would want them to. So on the left here, one section, we've got brand insights. So we are a integrated strategy agency, and social media is one part of what we do. So we probably, more than most social agencies, will look at a client and a brand as a whole strategy, because we don't just want to do marketing for the sake of doing marketing. We always want to say to a client, this is how much revenue we've generated, rather than just saying, this is how many likes that you got on this social media post. So we go quite in depth, but this is the level of what we think other social media agencies should be doing as well. So under brand insights, you want to send across any business information that is relevant to your agency. So that could be a quarterly business report that you've just done. It could be that you've just set your revenue goals for the year. And sometimes clients, I think, feel a bit uncomfortable sharing finances with the agency, and you might think, you know, why does my social media agency need to know how much revenue we want to make this year? But I'd flip that on its head and say, how can your social media agency do good social media for you if they don't know what the ultimate aim is of how much money social media should be making the business, or what areas of the business you want to grow? You know, they're not going to be able to properly put together a social media strategy for you. Then your brand foundations, you know, why you exist as a brand, your mission, your USPs. You want to get your agency really excited about the journey that you've been on to date and the journey that you're about to go on. Customer profiles, again, how can your agency create good social media if they don't know who they're creating social media for? So if you don't have customer profiles, that would be something that, you know, perhaps the agency could look into for you. Like with all of these areas, if a client doesn't have those, we can help to create those for them. Product or service demos. And by that, I mean that have your social media agency, if you're a product-based business, say to them, okay, we're going to do if you're a service-based business, say to them, we're going to do the demo for you that we would do to one of our potential clients, so that you can really understand the service that we offer and that user journey for our clients. If you're a product-based business, send your product to your social media agency, because it's going to help with content creation. But also, if they can hold the products and they can understand what the user's experience is of those products, they're going to be able to market them better. And then brand guidelines and competitor profiles, that they help your social media agency understand, how does this activity fit into the other marketing that's happening, and making sure that everything looks super on brand from a design point of view, but also tone of voice as well. And then the practicals, you want to make sure that your agency is super clear on who is their day-to-day contact, who should they get in touch with client side to know, any sign off on social media posts or sign off on strategy. And my advice here would be that you don't create a super lengthy chain of command for how the agency needs to get approvals, because if the account manager at the agency needs to speak to one person on the client side, and then that person needs to speak to another person, that person needs to speak to another person, and it goes on. It could be that you had a trending post that was going to do really well one day on social, and if you get it out 5 days later, it's completely dead in the water. So make that a smooth and really clear chain of command for approvals. Then channel access, you want to send that across in a secure way. So using something like LastPass or one-time secret or some kind of encrypted solution, so that you're not just sending passwords across on email or WhatsApp. And again, if you had an agency that was asking you to send a password across on WhatsApp or on email, then I'd see that as a massive red flag, because I'd question the security of how they're handling client passwords. And then social media KPIs. You want to be really clear from onboarding stage, what are the KPIs that your social media agency should be working to? How do they help you as a business? And I'd advise setting those together, because you want to have an input. You want to make sure that you steer the social media agency in where the KPIs should go, rather than just letting them set them alone. But equally, we have had clients before that set the KPIs and actually the KPIs are too easy, or we don't think that the KPIs are the best ones. And it's more useful to have that conversation together, so that you can have the social media experts and the business experts at the client decide, okay, this is what we're aiming for, this is the North Star, and this is what good looks like.
Okay.
Perfect. So just to finish off here, so it might seem like on that list there's a huge amount that you need to send across to your client during the onboarding stage. And yes, to an extent, if you're the person client side that's responsible for onboarding that agency, you're going to be quite busy that week that they first start. But one of the things that our founder and CEO always says is that relationships should be 50-50 over time. So it might be that when a new agency joins your business, the relationship is more like 80-20, like you're pouring 80% effort and energy into the agency while they get up to speed. But over time, maybe there's a week where you're mega busy, or you're on annual leave, and the agency has your back and they're getting everything done. And then it's 70-30 and it's lighter on your side. But over time, that relationship should be 50-50. And as long as that stays 50-50, it's a positive relationship. So remembering that you're there to set your agency up for success just as much as they're there to help your business succeed is really important in that 50-50 relationship.
Thanks so much, Corrie. That was, I really loved how much it resonated with everything you said, both from, from my experience and from my perspective, this idea of like relationship and partnership. That's something that I feel is so key to setting up a good connection from the start. And how, if it gets too transactional, like you said, we'll post 6 posts a month for you. That is very transactional, and it reduces the entire partnership to this one metric of how much, amount of content you're going to post. Like that's everything it reduces to.
Yeah, exactly. It's a terrible metric, because you could do 6 really terrible posts, and you could do 3 posts that are amazing, and they're going to get better results than the 6. So yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I'm following after you with this. part about communication and collaboration. Though I feel like the principles and the essence of the relationship, you've spelled it out so beautifully, and I vouch for the same thing. So we're very aligned in that sense. I thought I'd start with this quick story of a relationship that went terribly wrong, because I think I mentioned in the introduction as well, I worked with quite a few agencies. I mean, not quite a few, I guess around 10 in my lifetime as a marketer. Some of them were focused on social media. Some of those agencies did other services like paid ads, or even a bit outside the marketing spectrum, like website maintenance. But I felt like the principles of the work maintained, and with each of those agencies and the collaboration that I had with them, I learned something new about what I need, what we need as a client, and what I can do to help keep it alive. So yeah, so this one relationship, for example, was with an agency that we wanted to work with to do ads. Long story short, it lasted for I think a month and a half or two. Like it was very quick. And as any story goes, there were two sides to the story, and I know a lot of looking back at it, I know the mistakes that we've done. And I think, what happened mainly was that the chemistry that we initially felt and the values that we initially said weren't actually, I don't think we were speaking the same language, because we're a startup, and exactly like you said, Corey, that made me think about it, because you said, choose someone that feels like you, that vibes with your principles. Like if you're a startup and you want to move fast and you want to, be in a partnership, then choose someone who's in the same kind of vibe and atmosphere and believes in those things. And I would even add, has a bit of experience, because I've seen, some teams might say, yes, that's what we love and that's what we aim for. But if you've worked for a long time with in a wholly different style, it's very complicated to adjust. That goes for people as well. Like if you've been in humongous companies for all your life, you say you want to be part of a startup, but you might not necessarily be able to adjust that quickly to such a different environment. And I think that's what happened. We're a small team. We're very used to doing the marketing ourselves, to doing everything ourselves. So when we give something, we have this need of being kept in the loop. And I'm always like, even now, I'm telling the story, I'm afraid of saying it. Like it's like I feel like everyone is gonna think micromanaging, but it's not that. It's just, I feel like we have so much context about the industry, about what works, what doesn't, that I can really help, and it can be a real partnership. And the expertise of ads or of social media doesn't annul all the they come together. You know the environment, I know the industry, and together we can make it work. And that's what didn't work. I guess for me, what took the trust away was when it came to reporting. It was one of those presentations of these are the numbers, and it was all, we had 10 million, 20 million. I don't even remember. That's how much I didn't actually feel like it meant anything. People, they saw the post and everything, and we got whatever likes and views and all these metrics that, again, I didn't necessarily relate to. And that there wasn't, for me, that did not spell out partnership, because I kept trying to explain, I don't have any big higher up to send this presentation to have these flashy numbers. I'd rather hear the insights. I don't care that much at this point if it works or doesn't. I just want to hear something like insightful, like we tried this and it didn't work, but then we tried this and this seems like it's working better. That would have made me feel part of this a bit, and feel like it's a partnership that we analyze together, and maybe I find some insights or come with some other channel experience, and we can figure out together why some posts or ads worked, some didn't. So yeah, that was my experience. And again, I've had others as well, and I tried to list some myths that I've lived through or I've heard spoken and are actually true. Like for one, and speaking again to Corey's, the relationship is 50-50. You know, the agency handles it all. The client has to just trust. This is a myth, I think, on both sides. Sometimes I think the agency just takes so much of the pressure on their shoulders. Like you have to do everything. Otherwise, what are you doing? And that's not true. And on the client side as well, like expecting the agency to do it all with none of your help, like no content, no strategy, no insights. None of your previous experience shared it's unreasonable. They need your help, and yeah, you should definitely offer it. Another myth is that the onboarding process is really all the info and training an agency needs. I think, yeah, the onboarding is heavy and we all dread it. I think, it's that part that everyone wants to get the job started and to get the results coming in. And it feels like meta work, but it's very, very important. But at the same time, any company and any brand, I think it's very dynamic, right? And I've worked again at Planable for more than 6 years now. I think I'm approaching 6.5, and uh, and every day I spend my time working for this brand and hearing all these insights, and I still feel like it's so dynamic. And every month there's new information in my head, there's new ideas, there's new targets and segments that I want to go after or that I want to test. All those things should be told, and there should be a communication that simply flows with the agency. And you should, as a client, I think you have to keep them up to date. And as an agency, you have to keep reminding the client that to share with you whatever ideas or thoughts or insights they gather along the way. Approval is micromanaging, yes, and this is one thing that we truly do not like to hear as a platform that enables approval. But I guess that's one of the reasons why Planable exists, because approval can really help the relationship, but it can really hinder the results and the speed and the trust if it's not done properly. I think that many people mistake a faulty process of collaboration with the idea that the process, the collaboration and approval in itself is hindering. So I think that if you enable collaboration and approval in a easy and natural way, you can really help build that trust, and you can help stay involved as a client and get the client involved as an agency. I think that can build that trust and relationship in time, but it has to come natural and easy. It doesn't have to feel like a chore, because then it's just not going to work, and you're better off without it. Content creation and production is on the agency. I mean, again, the things that I've learned are as a client or as someone seeing so many agencies in Planable and so many clients working together. I can see how high quality content can be when the client gets involved and when they give access to, if they have physical products or if they have software, to all the materials that they have. If you give the raw access to an agency, then they can produce really high quality content. But if you put a wall, they're going to be able to screenshot your website or go in a store and photograph your product. It's where I think the client can give wings to the agency and all the ability to create high quality content. They should work the way we do. I actually see this a lot because I sometimes, again, I talk to a lot of our customers, and sometimes if we show them all the possibilities that are implantable, but then the agency goes, the client just wants to SMS me, and they don't want to go in, or they don't want to hit approve. And I think that's a myth on the clients. And of course, it has to be a workflow that works for both companies and feels natural and again doesn't add more problems than it solves, but it has to work for both parties again. And an agency usually has a lot of experience in that particular field, for social media. They work with many social media clients. They usually know tools and have a system worked out so that they can provide the content in a safe and secure way, and they can ensure that nothing falls through the cracks. That can only happen if you try to, compromise and find the common ground. And they have experience, so I should see results fast. I think I'm sure I was guilty of this at some point myself. It feels like usually, there's this channel, there's social media. We haven't really been able to do it ourselves. We've heard so many other great companies managing to make it happen. So if we're going to pay an agency, I mean, they know their stuff. So they should take us to the moon and back in less than 3 months during the onboarding period. I think that's unrealistic because even if you hire the toppest expert of the experts out there, no two companies are the same, no two brands are the same. And just like any part of marketing, it takes experimentation, it takes time to figure out what works. There's no recipe. And if there is a recipe, I think that's one of the red flags that should be added to the list that Corrie shared so far. If they have we have the recipe, we've done this with 3, 10, 100 more clients, we know what to do. That's probably a lie because no marketing is a recipe. So yeah. Okay, and so yeah, that kind of translates to principles. I'm going to speed through this one because we have that interactive part that I am very excited to get through. The principles are really, again, it's not a partner, it's a partnership. It's not outsourcing. That's the main idea. Corrie said this. I already said this. You're not removing social media as part of your team. You're rather adding more brains and more creativity and more expertise to the table. Trust is built in time, but I do think that any relationship should start with the benefit of the doubt and with all the good intentions and with the belief that everyone has all the good intentions. Otherwise, at the smallest sign of discomfort, it's gonna turn to pieces. Yeah, start with the how to work with us conversation. I think this is about the values alignment that Corrie talked about. I do this with new hires as well. Here's who I am, here's how I work, here's what I respond well to, transparency, honesty. These are the things that I tell the agencies that we work with. I do not care how bad the results are. I so appreciate you sharing them with me just to build that partnership feeling. So make sure you state clearly what your expectations are and what makes you tick. The workflow should be set from the beginning. I don't think that's something that should be discussed after 6 months. I think this, not from the first, of course, do the content pillars and the strategy and everything, but when you start actually implementing the work, you should have the workflow figured out. Offer regular feedback and reviews, and I think the agencies should ask them every 3 months, every 6 months. You should have one of those calls of let's discuss, because you should offer feedback on work regularly, but every now and then you should zoom out a bit and say, look, I've seen this pattern, or we like this, we don't like that. And finally, offer the transparency you yearn for. So usually, lots of people appreciate transparency, and maybe it goes for all the values that you have. If you have them, you should offer them back to set the example and the tone of the relationship. Yes, okay, good. So now we're on to the real life situations part of the webinar. So I'm going to do a quick recap of what this is. So basically, we've compiled off the internet, like Reddit, Facebook groups, Slack groups, all of these communities. We've gathered some of these situations that people talk about, or at least we've gotten inspired for them. We didn't actually copy paste any of these questions because that would have probably been a bit not okay. And so we thought, let's make this very real life-like. And so we'll have these situations. Corrie will comment on them and give her input and how she would tackle it. In the meantime, please use the chat as much as you want to give your own opinion of how you would tackle this situation, or to share if you've ever been in such a situation and what happened. And use these prompts as inspiration for you to share your own situations that we can discuss by the end of the webinar. Cool. Okay, so the first one. My agency only checks in with me once a month when they share some positive results, and it feels like we're not on the same page with our social media goals. How often should I expect my agency to communicate with me to ensure we're aligned and making progress?
Really good question. The first thing that jumps out to me here is that the agency is only getting in touch to share positive results. Because to your point about you really liked it if the agency would share results even when they were negative, I think if every time you speak to your agency they're only telling you the good stuff, I would dig deeper to what's actually the full picture of what's happening, because it won't be that every single post they put out on every single social channel does really well. There'll be some posts that haven't performed so well, and those posts will have some really useful learnings and useful insights that you can take probably into all of your marketing, not just social media. So that's point one here. And then answering the question directly of how often you should expect your agency to communicate with me, I think it's important to think about what you set out in the scope of work. So not to say that, the scope of work at the start of a project should be the document that you never change and tweak. Like, it should be an ongoing conversation throughout your contract and your relationship. But in our scopes of work, that's where we'll speak to a client and say, look, we can do, with some clients, we have daily reporting or daily dashboards that they'd be able to check in on. And we'd send a weekly wrap up email saying, this is what's been happening. We'd have a fortnightly call with the client. We'd have a longer monthly call. We'd have a quarterly, business review where we look at what's been happening the last 3 months, what do we want to happen the next 3 months. There's some clients that we work with that they do not have the budget level, or they don't want to allocate the budget level yet to have that much frequent communication. And we would say we need to have the QBR, the quarterly business review, so that we can look overall at how we're helping. And maybe we speak once a fortnight. But then there's some clients, perhaps bigger clients with bigger budgets, that would want that to be much more frequent. So I think that's a conversation and something to align on between you and the agency at the start of how often you'd expect communication. And it's gonna differ, because we've had some clients that they don't want frequent communication. They'd rather shave that part off the budget and put more budget into the doing, as they'd sort of call it. But I think there's a danger in that sometimes with, if your agency sends you a quote and there's like some time in there for account management and communication, I think some clients sometimes will see that as, oh, we don't need that, but you do, because that's exactly what this kind of thing answers. So depends on the relationship you've got with the agency and what you've set with them. But social media happens daily. There's all sorts of changes that go on, and I'd expect your agency to be communicating at least fortnightly, and sending you emails or picking up the phone whenever there's anything that needs an urgent discussion at the very basic.
Yeah, this also felt familiar for me, and the positive thingy popped up. Like, yeah, maybe I think sometimes I have this optimistic feeling that as a client you can maybe help open them up a bit more, like try to build that confidence and re-explain that it's fine, that you don't expect every post to be viral and that you're curious yourself and that, you think sharing insights both sides will help, like even for the other channels that you manage. So yeah, maybe not always, but sometimes. Okay, on to the next situation. I often provide feedback to my agency about their posts and strategy, but I feel like my suggestions are not being implemented or considered. I have to give the same suggestions over and over again. How can I ensure that my feedback is taken seriously and that we have a productive and collaborative relationship?
So firstly, that sounds incredibly annoying and frustrating from the client's point of view. So I think there's two parts to this. Firstly, I would question, is it that the agency is hearing your feedback, but they don't believe in it? Could it be that you've got great feedback from a business point of view, but you're giving feedback on something really social media specific and quite niche for the experts, and the experts actually disagree with that approach and they, through their expertise, think there's a better way to do it, which might just be a conversation, and they should be honest and be able to push back. Like, one of our values as an agency is being truthful, and this idea of doing what's right, not what's easy. It's really easy as an agency when a client asks you to do something for you to say, yeah, sure, we'll do that, rather than actually saying, from my experience, that's going to lead to this issue, or have you considered this, or let's talk about that together, and it be actually collaborative. So that's one thing. It might also be in a situation like this that if you're having to give the same suggestions over and over to multiple different people, there might be an issue of communication within the agency itself, and they're not speaking to each other. So, maybe you've told your account manager, we don't like that color blue, and then you've had to tell the social media exec and the social media manager all the same things, and they're not actually speaking to each other. So one of the ways that we mitigate against that is we have a custom built operating system that houses all of the information about our clients in there, so that anyone in the agency can see all of the latest updates or things that the client said and bits of feedback that they've given. And that's really granular. Like, if a client came to a meeting and they said, like, we offered them a biscuit and they said, oh no, I'm gluten-free, that information goes on the client's page on the OS, so that the next time they come to the meeting, we've got gluten-free biscuits ready instead. So it might be something that you bring up with your agency and say, look, when I give you feedback, where is that housed? Or do you speak to each other about it? And just be honest with the agency, because I'm sure they'd rather get the feedback and know, rather than in a couple of months' time, you're going to be like, this is ridiculous, I need to get a new agency.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, and I actually have an impromptu question based on what you mentioned in the beginning, because you said it depends on sometimes if they might not be implementing it because it's part of their expertise and they think it's the wrong thing to do. And I'm curious how you navigate that. How do you manage to remind some clients of the expertise that you have and of the experience that you have without sounding dismissive or maybe condescending or arrogant or anything bad that you might come across as?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The piece of feedback that we get, I'd group it into, is that a piece of feedback about the client's business or their industry, or something that undeniably they will know more about? I'd never say to a client, you've been running a company, in interior design for 20 years. I've been working on this account for 3 months. I think I know better than you. But if they're saying, oh, I think we should use this hashtag on Instagram, and I can see it's the wrong one, I'd be like, right, well, I've been working in this for over a decade. Social media isn't your primary area of expertise, and have that respect for each other to know where does the expertise come in, and we're better when we combine that expertise and work together. And I just have that open relationship with and open conversation with the client to say, perhaps look at some data or talk about previously when I've worked on social accounts like this, or when I've worked in this industry, or when I've run this in a different format and talk about real life experiences and data of when you've seen this work well. If the client still is saying, no, it's this way or nothing, I would talk about it in terms of experimentation and say, you know, we can trial that, and then let's look at the data and see what works best and what doesn't. And I heard this phrase at a talk that I went to. Someone else was speaking at the same event, and they said, beware of hippos, and it was highly paid person's opinion, which I loved and have remembered in the years since, that sometimes people can give their opinion, and if they're very used to a lot of people saying yes to them, you need to approach them with data to make sure that the hippo doesn't always get their way. It's quite
That's hilarious.
It's a fun way of thinking about it.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. I think actually, let's see if we have any questions, because I don't want to skip those. So this is the time. If you have any questions you want me or Corrie to answer, please go in the Q&A, and yeah, let us know. Are there any situations, or do you have any comments on what we talked about so far? And if anything comes up, we'll tackle it. In the meantime, I think we have, let's look over quickly this one, because this one was interesting. So my social media agency has a high turnover rate, which I think actually happens with many agencies out there. With new account managers being assigned to my account every few months, this constant change makes me worried about the consistency and quality of our social media strategy. Should I be concerned?
Yes, long story short, as the client, I would be concerned about that if I put myself in the client's shoes. And I think I'd be concerned about the consistency and quality of the social media strategy and the work, but also I'd be concerned about the culture of the agency and the longevity of the agency, because if they have people joining and leaving every couple of months, then are those the best people for the job? Are you getting the best expertise for that time? We, as an agency, not just in the social media department, but as an agency, we put a huge amount of time and effort and resource into training people that come into the business, so that everyone is trained up on strategy and delivering quality strategies. And if you've got an agency where people are leaving every couple of months, each person takes with them some expertise and some knowledge of your business. So it's something to consider when you choose agency. You know, how much do they train their employees? How happy are their employees? And there's different ways that you can judge that. Like LinkedIn will give you the average length of time that people are at that business for. We've just won the Sunday Times Best Place to Work and the Campaign Best Place to Work and a UK Company Culture Award. So there's awards that you could look to see, is this an agency that's rewarding their staff? Are they being given awards for their company culture? Does it feel like a place where people stick around for a long time, and then you're more likely to get a consistent level of service from the agency that you work with?
Awesome. We just had a very good question pop up in the chat. What do you say to your clients about your agency using ChatGPT? Have you started using ChatGPT, Gemini for your social media marketing reporting and summaries?
I'm so glad that someone asked this question. I promise I didn't plant this person to ask them to ask the question. Yeah, so we last year we formed an AI council, which is made up of different people from different departments across the agency, and their whole task as a task force is to look at how can we be using AI as an agency, both for efficiencies and benefits to the client, but also safeguarding, and there might be sensitive information that you're feeding into ChatGPT that shouldn't be there. So the way that we use it within social is we have different GPTs that we've built ourselves on things like proofreading or copywriting and different tone of voice. We're in the process of building GPTs that have a kind of act as the client. So we'll train them with all that information that we gather and all the feedback that a client gives us, so that GPT can make us more efficient and effective of, you know, getting something kind of first time right for the client. And a bit of a plug for Planable, but there's an AI integration with Planable that helps with content writing for social posts. So we are big Planable fans and use that as well in our content creation.
Yay! And the plug came so naturally. It actually did. I actually completely forgot to even mention that you're a Planable customer and anything. And I'm a marketer. Shame on me. Shame on me. Anyway, we're done. We've reached the end of this webinar. Thanks everyone for joining and for sticking around for the full hour. And thank you, Corrie. You were so insightful. I was eyes and ears all throughout, and already made so many mental notes of things to do with the agencies that we work with and with the agencies that we're going to sign in the future. So yeah, hope you had fun too.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having us. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Have a good one.
That's
Bye.
it. Take care. Bye. Bye.